Good morning. So I'm going to continue with Vimala's book, Voyage into Oneself. This is from a talk from 1968. Let it be very clear to us that fragmentation will be upon us as long as mind is functioning. When I have to touch the chair, the mind tells me this is a chair. The sensation is received and the brain interprets it. There's not much danger in calling a chair a chair. Of course, there is danger if one takes it to be absolute reality. A chair is not really real. A chair is a myth. It's a piece of wood out of which man wants to create something for his use. He shaped the chair in his mind and gave the wood that shape. So wood is the reality. The chair is a myth. The table is a myth. It is fiction. A fiction or myth is something which has relative reality. Truth is something which has absolute reality. A table or a chair, the door or the wall are all creations of the human mind for the convenience of his existence. They are not real in the ultimate sense of the word. But even then my brain tells me that this is a chair, and that the chair is real, and that is a door, that is a wall. It is something that is static, it's not moving, it is not dynamic. Again, here too one has to be very cautious. Physics and experts, the scientists will tell you that every atom, electron, proton is really moving. There is a quantum of energy which is enveloped in a form. The walls and the doors are also energies in so many forms. I will not go into those painful details. It is very interesting to study the latest discoveries of physics. What they talk of matter, how it is convertible into energy, how the minutest atom contains infinite energy. It's a tremendous century to live in. The discoveries that man has made in every science, whether biology or medicine, physics or technology, are amazing. Now man has found out that the brain is a machine and thinking is a mechanical process. Surely no sensitive person, no alert person of this century will feel proud of his thoughts and his values. They are social conveniences created by different communities and conditioned by climate, food, and the nature of occupation. But they are social conveniences. Man knows this. Even names are social conveniences. Vimala or Joan have no reality. Names are given by the parents to discriminate one entity from another. As the chair, we discriminate from the table, and the door from the wall. When we identify ourselves with those tiny entities called Robert or Harry, the machine starts working. I may be born in a Hindu community, and the pattern of behavior fed into my brain may be different from the pattern of behavior fed into your brain. So the responses, voluntary and involuntary, may be different. There is no superiority or inferiority, there's only variety. A person who knows that even the entity called the me, the ego, is a social convenience created by the community to discriminate one entity from the other, and movement of mind is a mechanical movement, grows into humility. Thinking and feeling and reacting is nothing original, but is a collective product. When man sees this, there is an explosion within him. Seeing has a tremendous potential. Then the psychological walls of ideologies, race consciousness, the sense of belonging to some nation, to some class, drop away. It seems to me that the whole humanity is standing on the threshold of true religion. Religion not as an idea in the brain, but as a way of life. The mind cannot function without referring to the past, to the known. When the mind receives any sensation or impression, it cannot interpret it without referring to the past, which is memory, the knowledge, experience. The experiences of different communities differ from each other. As long as I identify myself with the pattern of experience that I have, and you identify yourself with the pattern that you have, there will be conflict. Suppose both of us realize that these patterns do not belong to us, that we are not those patterns, then obviously all the fights, the wars that are waged today in the name of ideologies and of religion will become unwarranted. What is going on in Czechoslovakia and Russia today? This is 1968. Why is Russia pressing Czechoslovakian leaders and making them sign treaties? Why? They're not allowing them even to have a federation of the Slovaks and the Czechs. Why? Communists have become as fanatic and dogmatic as the Orthodox religious people. Whether the Orthodox religious are Catholics, Hindus, or Buddhists, they're all dogmatic. Religion was the opium when Marx wrote his book. Today, communism or Marxism have become equally an opium. They're fighting. There's tension between China and Russia. Why? Not for communism and Marxism, but for their ambitions. Whether China will lead the communist world or Russia will lead it. So as long as we identify ourselves with patterns of ideas, ideologies, and behavior, judging other people on their basis, do what we will not have peace in the collective life, and also not in the individual life. If it is impossible to be on the mental level and not respond on the basis of images, mind is really an image-making machinery. It is a kind of factory. It goes on creating images the whole day. It goes on judging people the whole day. So mind cannot respond without referring to the past. to the known, referring to the past, and responding on the basis of that does not give you a feeling of creative action. You are repeating or projecting your previous experience and your conclusions. You are imposing your image on the reality of the person. So, she says here, referring to the past and responding on the basis of that does not give you a feeling of creative action. You are repeating or projecting your previous experience and conclusions. You are imposing your image on the reality of a person. I wonder how many of us know what an ordeal it is to get related to another person. We do not know what it is to be in relationship. We are so self-centered. We are so busy with image making and deducing conclusions that we have no time to look at another person or to get related to another person. All our so-called relationships in family and society are just adjustments with one another's resistances. If you resist me on one point, I try to dodge that point and get at you at another point. I do not try to understand why you are resisting. I have no time for this. Thus, we have really no relationships with one another. We are related to other minds and the ego-centered activity of creating images. We are related with the images that we have created. Whenever the images shatter, collapse, or tumble down, we are frustrated, and then we turn away. Whatever one does on the mental level is bound to lead to misery and sorrow. It is bound to keep one oscillating between success and frustration, joy and sorrow, pain and pleasure. It's like being on a swing. If the swing goes in one direction, it is pleasure. If it goes in the other, it is pain. With static things, the mind can deal. With dynamic phenomena, like a human being, mind cannot get related. Therefore, the mind cannot understand what life truly is, which is moving every day. The context of life is changing every day. I find it very fascinating to live in this century when every day the colors, the shades of challenges are changing. It's a thrilling century to live in. All the old symbols, ideals, and ideologies are collapsing. We're standing on a threshold, anxious to break new paths. The younger generation is running in all directions, right from the drugs and chanting the mantras to revolts in Paris and Frankfurt. They're running in all directions. They do not know what to do. Limitations of sensual pleasure and inner contradictions of psychological living have exhausted patience. Something new is in the offing. This seems to be a century of revolution, and the revolution that we're going to have now seems to be a total psychological revolution. When we realize that man cannot live and function through the mind, which is capable of dealing with static phenomena, and which is simply incapable by its very nature of getting related to any dynamic, we become humble. You know what relationship is? It is getting related to the totality of another person, who's ever changing. I must have a fresh glance and the innocence to look at you and find out who you are, rather than judge you on the basis of what has happened the previous night. Innocence is necessary to understand individuals around us, as well as the whole context of life, which is changing all the time. So when we realize that mind is not the right instrument, that it will not be able to understand what life is, we become silent. Religion is personal discovery of the meaning of life. Religion is not adopting a dogma, offering lip service to certain patterns of behavior. Religion is not vicariously borrowing experiences of others and imagining that we have them. Religion is a first-hand discovery of the meaning of life as it goes on, moving every moment. It is to move with life and understand what life implies. There's such a beauty in that movement. Thousands of years we've been living in the decorated cage of psychological structure created by the ego, the self, or the me. One is reluctant to leave that structure unless this mind is assured that there will be another structure to live in. Look at the game of the mind. It wants to have a blueprint. It wants to have a structure ready where it can turn from this and plunge into another. Now, the beauty of life is it cannot have a structure, it cannot have a set pattern. Everything is changing and moving. One has to understand the nature of the constant flux that life is. Until now, we have followed the way of identification. Now, one has to learn the art of non identifying, of understanding everything, and of living through every experience thoroughly. One has to learn the art of walking through all these without getting stuck anywhere. Then only one can move with life. So, without denying or suppressing the mind, without trying to discipline or control it, one has to realize the limitations of mental activity, the mechanical nature of mental action, and the frontiers of mental activity. The content of our knowledge and experience is the frontier of our consciousness. Mind cannot transcend those frontiers. When one realizes this, and when the consciousness or the awareness has been stripped of all the vanity that one has, when it gets stripped of all norms and values, when one is devoid completely of these psychological layers, then one is in the dimension of humility to inquire to what is beyond. I do not imply hereby that one should neglect the sensual world or the psychological world, not turning away from the beauty of the senses or the impressions that they bring us, the complexity of the nervous system and every sensation, the uniqueness of every sensation, the biochemical effect of every thought on us. We should be aware of all that beauty. To me, life is a whole. So relationship with the sensual and psychological world must be a scientific one. We cannot neglect it. I remember another story. Two Americans went to Japan, and I know these friends of mine who went to Japan. They had come to India, and after spending some months in India, they went to a Zen school in Tokyo. They found that the Zen masters were working in the monastery, cutting wood, cooking the meals, washing the dishes, doing everything. So after a few days, they were puzzled. They'd gone to learn, and here were the Zen masters doing exactly what they were doing. So one day, one of them asked the master, "Sir, we've come to learn from you, but we do not see any difference in what you are doing and the way we are living here." The master said, "There is a difference. When I eat, and you do not. When I sleep, and you do not. When I eat, I'm totally present. When you eat, you're worried about tomorrow. You brood. You think about 101 things. You put the morsel of food into your mouth like an automation. Mechanically, you chew it, but you're not related to it. You're not there. You're not present with the food. All our actions are partial and fragmentary as long as we function on a mental level. He said, "When I sleep, I sleep. I sleep profoundly. When you sleep, half of the time you're dreaming. So you're again on the mental level. You do not deeply sleep. Half of the time you're dreaming. When you are awake, you try to interpret the dream. You see how we live on the mental level and how deep the fragmentation has gone? Not only does it pollute the waking hours, but this fragmentation is involved. But this fragmentation involved in mental action pollutes and contaminates the quality of sleep, which is the nectar of life. We violate the modesty of that delicate instrument when we misuse speech. It is a gift to create the symbol, but we misuse speech so much. When it is not necessary to speak and communicate, why should we gossip? But we do. We use words not to express what we feel, but many times to hide what we feel. Every misuse of the physical and psychological organism adds to our misery and sorrow. And therefore, the foundation of religious life is a scientific relationship with the body and the mind. One who indulges in sensual pleasure has no respect for his physical organism. One who tries to impose unwarranted, unscientific austerities on the body has also no respect for the physical organism. Austerity and indulgence are obverse and converse of the same quality of mind. There is no difference. The foundation of religion is a scientific relationship with the body and the mind. So I think till so far today, I wish you a very good day. Bye for now.